Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Track Talk Live. I am Miss Choo Choo and I have Mr. Clickety here with me. Mr. Clickety, how have you been? Where have you been? What's up?
Well, I actually haven't been anywhere.
You haven't been anywhere.
As maybe a lot of people know, we had a polar vortex pass through here.
Yep, we have.
And actually, my cat decided to pretty much sleep through the whole thing.
Oh, I wish I could have slept through the whole thing. I had to get up and shovel it.
But no, actually, the one good thing about the polar vortex is it makes you stay inside and actually do something productive.
You can do inside activities like model trains.
As I mentioned at the last Track Talk Live, I was in Florida at a convention and got all excited about, well, basically two things for me, although they had a lot of really good seminars. But I'm doing car weathering and loads for open cars. Okay. And I got all excited there in Florida, and I'm still working on it. And so, you know, 25 below zero, heck with it. Turn up the heat and
stay inside. Yep, there you go. All right, so we're going to do some photos that Doug brought in to show us and also start asking your questions in the chat below. There's a little box outlined in navy, so start throwing them in there and we'll try and answer as many questions as we can today that we have time. But other than that, do you want to go into some of your photos?
Well, let me start with the first picture here. Now, I can hold this up before we go to the picture. This is my latest NMRA bulletin. Oh. And the NMRA, of course, is a wonderful organization, has been around forever. And they're, of course, promoting their convention, which is going to be pretty much the same time as the all the goings-on in Ogden, Utah for the 150th celebration of the Golden Spike. Wow. Anyway, there's some wonderful articles, but primarily I wanted to show you this picture in the front. And this is one of the layouts that's going to be on layout tours. Oh, okay. In the Ogden area. And I just love it for its simplicity. This is basically a Cajon Pass, Southern California theme layout. But you know, you look at the desert scenery in that picture, and I mean, there isn't, you know, it's not complicated. It's in fact, that's what I like in modeling. I like to be subtle. And everything is subtle in that picture. So I just wanted to show you this. Anyway, there's great articles, and I would certainly recommend joining the NMRA for. You get one of these magazines once a month. All right. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you, and this is to kind of tease my buddy Tom Watson over in the UK, but here's the next picture. This is my layout. Oh, this is your layout. Yeah, see that? That's what I did over the polar vortex. Yep, there you go. No, just kidding. This is the BNSF, the front page of the BNSF company calendar. And it was taken by actually a locomotive engineer, and this is the Deschutes River in Oregon. But the reason I'm showing this is I think it makes you want to model it, doesn't it? I mean, it's so cool. Very picturesque. We look at this picture. I mean, look at the weathering on the concrete piers on the underside there, and everything about it. And I don't exactly know the area, but it might be going into a tunnel there right ahead. Yeah, it might be. Kind of looks like it's going into a tunnel. But anyway, just you can study that picture. It's just so well done, and so it just enthuses me to the point where I'd like to model it. I mean, the water, look at the water, the white caps in the water and everything. Really neat. So that was just a simple thing, but I wanted to show you that. So we'll go on to the next one. This past summer, I drove out to South Dakota, and I went through Montevideo, Minnesota. Oh. And there's a really great model railroad club there. There was actually a Milwaukee Road roundhouse there back in the days of the Milwaukee Road. And these folks are actually building their club layout on the site of what was the railroad property. Oh, very historical. And so they're modeling the area. And you look at this picture, and we can, if you go back to the picture, you look at how well done it is. Look at the track work in that picture. It's just, I think it's tremendous. And the backdrop and everything is so well done. It's a very, I mean, what you would call a museum quality project. Yeah. I mean, and it is a museum. Yeah. But I mean, it's so well done. And you know, in a museum, you have to do really quality work because you're probably going to run the trains a lot. So there are a lot of shows, and you know, the worst thing is to have something go wrong right in the middle of a show. Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. So I mean, people want to do a really good job, and these folks did. And I took another picture. They have a helix on the underside of the scenic layout there, but. So it's basically a folded dog bone shape with hidden tracks underneath, and they have an accessible area in the back where they have staging. Oh, cool. So I was very impressed. I'm going to go back again this summer and see what they're doing there, but very, very impressive and inspiring. So the next picture really is my layout.
Oh, this really is your layout.
And I don't know why I took this picture. I'm just kind of messing around. This is on a scrapyard. And I've actually been doing even more work now over the, with the weather the way it's been. But just to kind of show you what I'm working on in my layout. So if anybody wants to critique me, they're welcome to.
If anybody has any suggestions for Doug's layout.
I was going to say, if they're welcome to email and say they don't like it.
Say they don't like it.
But here's another one. And this is the foreground. There's an irrigation canal, which was actually part of the real Riverside, California area. And you can see a little bit of the viaduct above, which was actually what, in my case, carries the Pacific Electric trolley line into downtown Riverside.
Yeah.
So I had those pictures. I just wanted to show them. So. Now here's another thing that I'm really excited about. This isn't really for modeling, but so I'm modeling the Pacific Electric, and it's hard enough to find any Pacific Electric equipment in any scale. Well, I contacted the folks at the Pacific Electric Historical Society out in California because I was so excited about finding this in S scale. I mean, it's hard enough to find anything in S scale. Much less a Pacific Electric boxcar, which I found on eBay. Wow! And so I sent this picture to them and said that I haven't weathered the car yet. I had just gotten it. I put it on the track, and I wanted to show them what it looked like. So, but it's really exciting. If anybody that's viewing is a Pacific Electric fan, I'd love to talk to them. I'd love to learn more about it. Okay, the next picture is might be familiar, and you have to excuse that signal that's falling down. I didn't notice that in the original when we took the picture, but this is on Mr. Clack's layout. Oh. And so Mr. Clack is still around. He's been busy with other things, but I just wanted to show you, this is also S scale, and this is a model of the Chicago main post office downtown. Okay. And the trackage that actually went under the post office on the way to Union Station. Wow. So, Steve is quite a modeler. I love his work. Now this is a model that I took a photo of. This was actually out in Florida when I went to the Cocoa Beach convention, and so I wanted to show this. I thought this was great. This is in O scale, and I guess I don't need to draw on these, but you can see. I mean, I just love the kind of the style. I love the stone end walls there with the wood detailed in between, and you know, the kind of the Wild West look to everything. I think that's very well done. Now here's another picture on the same layout, O gauge again, and I just thought, you know, there again it's subtle. I mean, I don't know. I just like the more subtle kind of modeling that brings the point across in a subtle way. But I mean, you look at the stock pins there and everything. I mean, I just thought that was such a great, just a great scene. Looks nice. I'm glad you like it. All right, now, I just want to show you this just as a crazy story, but you know, my buddy Bill Briggs, who I worked with for quite some time, he has since passed away, but his layout is undergoing some cleanup. They had a kitchen drain pipe break. This layout has been videoed in the past, and people maybe have seen the videos of it, but there was a sewer drain pipe that broke and flooded this room, and it's about 1,500 square feet. Wow. So they had to take off the sheetrock around the bottom edge because it was getting moldy. Oh, gross. So that's why the plastic is up there. And so the next step would be to remove all of that linoleum floor tile and replace it because the water got under the tile. Now, the original plan was to actually carpet the aisle area in the center there, but Bill passed away about 8 years ago, and then things kind of came to a halt. But anyway, it's a wonderful layout, and I just wanted to show you what it looked like. Just kind of spooky, spooky almost. Here's something now, just for modeling ideas. I've been throwing these crazy pictures in here, and I hope people will send me some comments. But my son and I were messing around, and this was near Lewiston, Idaho, and this is an old switcher that actually switched a grain elevator in the town there. And the line is abandoned now. The Nez Perce Railroad is abandoned. Camas Prairie, excuse me. Camas Prairie Railroad is abandoned, and this locomotive just sitting there in the weeds. But I think it shows you just a lot of great ideas for weathering.
Yeah.
If you go back to the picture, look at all the rust, and here there's a sunshade that looks like part of the sunshade
Kind
or
of
the roof maybe
broken
that's falling off. And I saw that thing there, it looked so sad. I was hoping maybe some museum would grab it.
Come take it up.
Yeah, I mean the track is pulled out, so it's not going to go anyplace. It's sitting on a little bit of track.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of the track is pulled out. So that was kind of a cute thing. And then somebody had sent me in my email this past month, they were asking about trailers, Southern Pacific trailers. And I don't know if I went back to that picture of my Pacific Electric boxcar. That's who it was, the Pacific Electric guy.
Oh.
If I went back to my picture of the Pacific Electric boxcar, I have trailers like this in my layout, but of course they're not this beat up. But
yeah.
The idea is, I mean, look at this scene. I mean, look at everything around it. There's old ties, there's all kinds of barrels and track components, spikes and everything. And these were kind of unique trailers because they were very short. And they had a side door, so if you were on a street, pulling up to a street up to the curb, you could unload it from the side, and not just the end. But it's, I mean, the weathering, I mean, the scene, I think, is just tremendous. And my buddy Tom from the UK was with me on this trip, and he was out looking for other stuff to photograph, and I saw this, and I thought, wow, what a neat thing. And just to show you, this is my buddy Tom right here. Hi, Tom in the UK.
Tom.
He might be watching.
Oh, I hope he is.
So this was in the town of Santa Rosa, or no, Petaluma, sorry. Petaluma, where the restoration yard for the Northwestern Pacific is. And this is the Caboose they just recently restored. And I think I mentioned this before, but when you see people restore these real full-size pieces of railroad equipment, I mean, it's like building a big model. I mean, it really is, except it's big, and you got to still have to use all kinds of ingenuity to figure out how to remake the pieces and everything.
Make it look like
and
new.
So anyway, kudos to them. And okay, this was just the one I wanted to throw in. So my wife and I are coming back toward Tampa from going to this convention in Cocoa Beach, and so my wife wanted to stop. She likes all the gardening and stuff at Disney World, so we stopped at Disney World, and of course I said, well, okay, every time I go to Disney World, I got to ride the train.
Yep, there you go.
So anyway, we went there to the Magic Kingdom, and it turns out that the train wasn't running.
It wasn't running. Why not?
Well, they severed the track because they're doing some over on the, well, I guess kind of the left-hand side when you look. They're redoing something in the park, and they severed the track, and so they just have the train sitting there. But it's this train always reminds me of what a neat guy Walt Disney was. And this was very important to him. This locomotive was named Lilybell, which was his wife's name.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And this train actually was the impetus for the building of the park. I mean, that's what started it. Was Walt wanted a place to run trains.
Yep. So he built a whole park.
So why not build a park? So anyway, I wanted to show you that because it's kind of a neat picture. They just had it parked there at the depot.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to get people. I want people to send me pictures of tools, but I wanted to show this picture. This is a stiff bristle brush that I have, and I have no idea where I bought it.
Oh,
but it's
an oldie but a goodie.
Bristle, but I use it for actually, if you want to put these rough, like rusty, blotchy kind of areas on something, you can actually take semi-dry paint. It's almost like dry brushing, but it's not completely dry. I squirt the paint out on something non-porous. It could be, glossy cardboard or wax paper or anything like that. Let the paint get a little bit dry, and then you jab this brush in it, and then you go over to I just use like paper towel and dab it to get a lot of the paint off, and then actually just jab under the car, and you'll see these rust blotches, and you can do multiple colors of rust, and it really is, it's a lot of fun. So I just wanted to show you that brush because I'm trying to get people to send me pictures of the crazy tools that they use. Oh, and I want to show you this. This is a glue I ran into, and I don't even know, it was sitting on my workbench. Somebody brought it over, and I don't know where it even came from. I'm going to have to look it up online, but it's called Liquid Fusion, and it's a kind of a, it's probably like a craft glue, but it's clear, and it's medium viscosity. It's not too thin, not too thick.
In between.
And it's got a kind of a nice pointed tip. And I tried it on some wood parts. I tried it on some other parts, and I really like it.
Oh, it's really
So
good.
I recommend it. I'm going to go online probably and figure out where I can get it. But anyway, neat stuff. And this crazy thing, okay, I came across this.
Oh, these are like for...
What do you think this is?
Aren't they for frosting cakes originally or something
well,
like
this
that?
is real tiny. This is
it's real small.
Probably 2 inches long, the whole thing.
Wow.
But it's a little air...
compressor?
What am I trying to say? Bellows. And so if you have a little tiny spot, there's something with a little tiny, something in the, like, I've had little pieces of, maybe if you, a little dust or
some
piece of wood chip or some crazy thing like that. You just a little tiny spot and just want to go psh, psh, with that thing.
Yep.
You just squeeze it. It's a doggone thing. And there again, I don't know where I ever got it. But it's just, it's one of those things where it's handy if you need it.
Yeah.
If you got, doggone it, this thing fell in this little crack. You go in there and psh, 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 get it out. So anyway, please send me pictures of
your
weird tools. We want to talk about them.
Speaking of tools or things you may have lying around your house, below the chat bar, we actually have a bar that's a downloadable free PDF for 10 household items that you can use to make scenery. So if you're interested in some other crazy tools, download that PDF below the chat.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I like it. I know people use their blender to grind up things. And then they don't tell their wife afterwards that they use the blender.
Making a smoothie after that.
Yeah, I'd probably recommend getting a separate blender.
Yeah, probably. Seems like a good idea.
Okay, now I guess here's one other thing, and I may have showed this picture before, but next month I want to talk about airbrushes because I've been using my airbrush quite a bit as part of my weathering I've been doing. And so this is my spray booth out in my garage, and it's a kitchen vent fan. It's a stainless steel fan that used to be in our kitchen. Yeah. We got a different one now. So I put all this in my garage, and it actually has an outside vent. Oh, nice. That's against my back garage wall. Goes right outside blows outside. And I found this nice adjustable stool. So the metal is, I actually found it at one of these junk bonanzas. Are you familiar with those? This was at a junk bonanza. It goes up and down. You can adjust it. It's all metal. I mean, it's really nice. And so all I did was kind of clean up. It was a little bit rusty, cleaned it up, and painted it. And that's my stool for painting. And you can see my air line that comes down there, my flexible air line. And so my compressor is actually on the other side of the wall. Yeah. And it kind of that way, when a compressor runs, it can be kind of loud, because I have a big household or industrial kind of compressor. So anyway, that way the compressor, you don't have to hear the compressor running so much. And so it just goes on the other side of the wall. I have a switch to turn it on from this side.
Yeah, nice setup.
Anyway, that's that. I think, that's it for the pictures.
That's all the photos. Well, then we will get into the questions, which we will be asking. So start dropping them in the chat. I have a few already, but we are happy to take more. So our first question is from Francis, who asks, "Hi, Doug. I got a newbie question for you. I have only done the annual under the tree setup, and now in my golden years, I'm going a bit bigger. I'm having a 4x10 train board with a 2-inch pink foam, and I'm running O-scale with old and new engines, Rail King with 3-point prototype and DCC. I'm using real tracks with just a basic oval to start and a 50-watt transformer. Will I have enough power to run the road, or will I be looking at putting in buses? Thanks, and I have really learned a lot watching the videos."
Well, great. I'm glad you're watching. Actually, 50 watts is pretty good. I wouldn't be so concerned about the wattage for quite some time. And, if you got real crazy, you might want to do something more. But as far as the feeders go and a bus wire, I would say do add a bus wire. And, the recommendation is every 6 to 8 feet. But what happens is the rail connectors themselves can get dirty or corroded. Yeah. And, it may work at first, but maybe down the road, they may not conduct the juice as well. Yeah. And you'll get a voltage drop on the far end of your layout. So I would recommend using a bus wire and putting in feeders every 6 to 8 feet just to be on the safe side. And, it'll run good for a while just for testing. So you don't have to do it immediately. But you definitely want to put in feeders before you do scenery or something like that, because then it's going to be a lot harder to get to. So I think that's my answer. Is I think your power is fine, and just maybe add bus wire and feeders.
All right. Our next question is from Craig, who asks, "Do you know anything about Roku Z21 for DCC?"
Boy, you stumped me on that one. I do not. I'm sorry, I don't. Is that that must be a European model? If you could send me some information on it, I'd be happy to look at it. I don't know. I know of Roku, but I don't know of their DCC system.
All right. And also, if anyone has an answer to that, you can put it in the chat and I'll read it out loud too. All right. Our next question is from Dan from Quebec, working in Z-Scale, who asks, what do you do when your track cleaner car cleans the track, but now your train won't go up the hill? It slips. Do I need dirt? Is there anything for traction?
Well, does he mean, I wonder, while he's pulling his track cleaning car? Because a track cleaning car has a lot of drag.
Yeah.
But you can put multiple locomotives on the front end. I know guys that do that. You can put 2 or 3 locomotives on the front end and pull the thing around if you have to.
Yeah.
If your locomotive is slipping, after you clean the track, it's possible that you're leaving an oil film, depending what you're using as a track cleaner.
Yeah.
It's possible you're leaving an oil film on the track, which will make it slippery.
Yeah.
So I use, when I do these commercial G-scale trains, I use lacquer thinner. There might be something better, but I use lacquer thinner to take off any oil that might be in a track. And I think quite some time ago on a Track Talk Live, I showed I had a paint stirring stick like this, and I just wrapped a paper towel around it like this and taped it. So I would dip it in lacquer thinner and then just go like this on the track, and like so on the track to clean it. So you're not really, making a big stink with the lacquer thinner, because it is stinky, but just a little bit of lacquer thinner. And then, so I would say just make sure that you've got the anything slippery off the track when you're done cleaning. And some guys use also just I don't mean to say a real heavy abrasive block, but a light abrasive block after they do liquid cleaning, just to make sure to kind of wipe the track clean. You don't want to get it too coarse so you could scratch the track, but just a light abrasive
just a little bit
cleaning block.
All right, our next question is, Doug, what scale do you recommend for a beginner modeler?
Well, I like S scale.
Of course, you'll say that, yeah.
But no, actually, to be honest, HO is really the best because there's so much available. And it's a good size to start with. The S scale, it's always a fight to get what you want.
Things,
HO, there's so much available, and you can do anything you want in HO, and it's a good compromise size. N scale is great for people who have the tight spaces, small rooms, and want to get a lot of railroading in a smaller room. And I've actually used to know a guy who'd had ed scale, but he had scenery from the floor to the ceiling.
Oh, wow.
So it really was an incredible mountain scene, and there's this little N-scale train and a dwarf by the mountains. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. But as a beginner, I would say start with HO, play around with it, kind of focus in on what you want to do. And model railroaders, when they first start out, kind of, you have to kind of find a focus because you can't do everything.
Can't do it all.
And so, yeah, I'd say HO.
All right. Our next question is, do you have any suggestions on what you could make rain gutters out of using O scale?
Ooh, somebody else asked that question, I think a month or two ago. I think it was a bigger scale, so that was maybe in G scale. I do not know, although somebody told me that there is something maybe in the special shapes in brass. If you look at the what's called special shapes, probably online. They have all the various brass tubings and channels and I-beams and all kinds of crazy stuff. There might be something that would be more of like a dollhouse kind of a, a dollhouse item. But I would check special shapes. I mean, try to bend one or shape something would be a lot of work. But that's about the best I can do for you. All right.
Our next question is, I'm about to start building mountain scenery. What is your recommendation for building mountains in HO scale?
Well, I guess it depends on how big you want them to be. We've actually built mountains that are so big you can crawl under them.
Wow.
I mean, and that's a kind of an advantage because if you do a big mountain, you want to have access, of course, because, it's the axiom in model railroading. The track's never going to go bad in the front. It'll always go bad under the mountain every time. So you want to make sure you have access on anything you cover up. So I've done, multiple methods. People really like the gauze, plaster gauze method. Woodland Scenics sells the plaster gauze. You can buy it actually as a medical item, plaster gauze. So if you happen to be working on your layout and you broke your leg,
there you're ready.
You could set your own cast right there. You have the stuff. But anyway, I've used the cardboard strip method. I've used the metal screen method. I've used the rigid foam method, where you actually build a shape with rigid foam and just use it for a form, and then once the plaster hardens, I mean, that dries real hard, so once the plaster hardens, you can take the foam out. Even with metal screen, same way. You can use a metal screen. The fiberglass screen you can't really shape. You have to use a metal screen that you can bend and shape and everything.
Yeah.
And with metal screen, you can put little support posts in underneath it because it is kind of heavy when it's wet, the plaster. So once everything dries, it's hard as a rock. So you can take all that out. So and everybody has their own method they like. So I would say experiment. Try a little. You don't even have to do it on your layout. Just do a little experimental diorama. Try some different methods and see what you like.
See what works for you.
And then once you get the hard surface, then you can do other coatings in the top. I like to do a maguzulum mix of different things brushed over the top for a surface layer, and then coloring and ground foam and blah, 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 all that over the top. But get a good base.
Get a good base. All right, our next question is from Michael Decker, who asks, I've planned a tear-shaped reverse loop. I bought a Digitrax AR1 to reverse the polarity, but I hear that someone makes a board that would also throw the switch for the train to exit the loop.
Yes. Boy, the name. Tony's Train Exchange and is it DCC Specialties, I think, go to Tony's Train Exchange. They have a board that will, I think it's called an AR board. And there's a board, maybe like the AR2, you'll have to look it up online, but a board that will actually do that using, like, say, a tortoise as a switch motor.
Yeah.
Tony's Train Exchange they're fabulous people and they know a lot about DCC. So look them up online or even call them.
All right. Give them a call. Our next question is from Jamie, who asks, my trains have been in storage for years. I used to love taking them apart and cleaning/repairing the broken ones. Is there a reliable place online to get pieces and repair parts, especially missing boiler plates from a few of my 1776s and looking for the couplers between the engines and the tenders, stuff like that?
Well, is it Michael?
Jamie.
Jamie, you didn't mention what scale and what manufacturer you're using. So if you could text me back or email me back and let me know. Generally, there are flea markets. You can check online, but flea markets are good for older equipment. If it's quite old, you just if you have a model railroad flea market in your area, that'd be a perfect place to go check.
Yeah.
But let me know what equipment you're using.
All right. We have someone from YouTube joining us, Lone Wolf 777, joining us from YouTube, asks, hi, Doug, have you ever used pastel chalk to do crazy effects like weathering, or in some cases, black pastel chalk to make it look like there was a fire on your old locomotive?
Well, I haven't done the fire thing, but actually, I've done it at a building, I guess. But or I did it on a trailer, took an old trailer.
Oh.
But, I love pastel chalks. They're great. The one thing is that I found, and I think most people will say that the typical, like say, if we're working on a plastic model, the surface is kind of slippery.
Yeah.
I mean, and the chalks don't want to stick real well.
Oh, yeah.
So generally, people recommend putting just a clear, flat spray, or like in my case, what I've been doing over this past couple of weeks is actually taking a dirty, kind of a muddy, dirty, gray, brown, sort of a color, just as a base coat for the weathering.
Yeah.
And once you have this flat base coat, then microscopically a flat paint is like kind of rough like sandpaper. So and then the chalks will stick. And then I have various tools for rubbing in the chalks. I mean, all different eraser type things, stiff brushes. I want to do a lot of different methods. So I don't want all my cars to look the same. I mean, these cars are supposed to look like they've gone 1,000 miles in different directions. And so I try to change the weathering from one car to another. The color of weathering, the style of weathering, and then I mentioned the rust. Really, I like doing those rust spots.
Making the rust.
There's that splatter thing where you take an old toothbrush and brrr down the toothbrush when you have paint on it, and let it splatter on your car. Yeah. Always makes for a cool effect.
Our next question is from me and Del Ken OTC. It's a long name for me to pronounce. Hello, I'm modeling an HO and the process of building a grist mill scene where the water wheel will be powered by a motor with real water coming out of the water box onto the wheel. I plan on coating my laser art kit with matte varnish, several coats, on and around the mill area. Will this keep the area safe from water damage, or what do you recommend?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can use, you could actually use, like say, an oil-based varnish, like a Spar type varnish, which, you know, I mean, that's made for water. And the Spar varnish might have a little bit of a kind of a gloss to it, but once you have a Spar varnish as a sealer, then you come back over the top and put a flat finish on top of the Spar varnish. And, you know, the acrylic flat varnish may wear off after a while, and you may have to redo it, but I mean, that way it will protect your building if you have like a Spar varnish on it to start with. Keep it from maybe even warping. If it got wet, it could warp.
Yeah, that's true. Our next question is from Lou, who asked, I may have asked a similar question in the past, but at this time I'm being more specific and anxious to move along with these projects. Thank you in advance for any thoughts you may have on this subject. Oh, this is a continuation from a question earlier, I think. Well, thank you for being thankful.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Jay,
Thank you.
Who asks, where to reference installing DCC sound into a brass steam locomotive? Where do you reference that?
Oh, boy, there's all kinds of things. But I mentioned Tony's Train Exchange. They have videos, I mean, because they sell a lot of DCC gear, and they have videos. And I think all of the DCC actual manufacturers, you know, like Soundtrax and TCS and Digitrax, you know, they all, I think, have videos right on their site. Also, there's a lot of just individual. If you go to YouTube, there's you know, there's all kinds of videos of people doing installations. And you know, if go to your local club in your town and talk to the people in person that are doing that too.
Yeah. Doug, do you have any videos of your layouts online? Do we have any videos of your layout on Model Railroad Academy? I know we have some blog pictures of your layout, but I don't know if we've toured it.
You know, no, that's a good question. We should do that. I just, you know, I had these pictures today. I have not done videos, but I think we should do that.
We'll do that. Tour your layout.
Let's do that. Thank you.
Our next question is, do you think a 3D printer is good for the scene? Or do you think 3D printing is good for the scene in general?
You mean for making a scene, I guess? Or, well,
or for the model railroad community in general?
Oh, they're fantastic. You want to get a good quality one, though.
Yeah.
You know, and I know people who actually, the trick is knowing the software. I mean, you can actually go to places that have very high quality commercial grade 3D printers and rent time on them. And that kind of thing is popping up in all kinds of cities now. But that way you don't have to buy a 3D printer. You can just go rent time on it and, you know, get the best quality you can get. To buy your own 3D printer, it's like, you know, it'd be like buying an iPhone. You know, every year it's going to be outdated. So I think you're better off just renting time. Learn the software. That's the trick, is learning the software to do what you want to do. But I've seen some fantastic stuff. I mentioned going to that, I went to that Model Expo in Albany, New York last November and saw some absolutely stunning models that were built using 3D printer. I mean, so yes, that's my recommendation.
Yes. All right. Our next question is from Rick in Oregon, working in N-Scale, who asks, I was wondering what to do to make paved roads. I saw some posts where people use shingles. I was thinking of trying to paint them with black paint and adding woodland scenics from fine black cinders to the wet paint. But that was before I saw the shingles idea. What do you recommend?
Well, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there, and then depending on what you want to pave with, I actually, on my layout, I use a product from Monster Model Railroad Works, and unfortunately the guy is not in business anymore, but I think other people will pick it up. I actually bought, it's a concrete roadway surface. And the guy, you know, he did it on computer, cut it on computer again, 3D printer, with cracks, it has cracks and all kinds of stuff. And then as I laid it in, I wanted to do a little bit of a crown. And in the old days, people would just do that with plaster. You'd actually build it up so you had a little bit of a crown. I think the crown on the road really looks neat, and especially if you have curbing and then maybe like a drain, you know, in the curb and that kind of thing. So the crown is just really sets it off. I mean, people have done, you know, roadways forever, and they made them out of cardboard, they made them out of sandpaper, foam core board. I mean, you can make them out of just about anything. But, these new roadways that are, cobblestone, that's another one. You can buy cobblestone sheet for a roadway too. This new computer stuff is so well done.
Makes for some really neat
there again,
neat
I'd
stuff.
experiment, because everybody has their own, you know, their own idea about what they think is neat. So I'd experiment around or talk to people in your area and see what they like. Or, you know, these RPM shows. Did I mention that I'm going to an RPM show?
No, maybe.
No, I don't think I did, in Pennsylvania toward the end of March, over the weekend of the I think it's the 24th of March. I'm going to RPM East Meet in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh. And hopefully somebody watching will show up there. I'd like to say hi to you people in person.
Come say hi to Doug.
But like, I go to these shows, and there's so much talent at these shows. I mean, if you have a question about anything, you know, somebody there is going to, you know, show you how to do it. They're so helpful. They'll sit there right in front of you and show you how they do it. And, you know, everybody has their own tricks and tools and everything. So, yeah, the RPM meets are the best thing going right now as far as I'm concerned.
Our next question is from Don in California, working in N-Scale as well, who asks, I would like to build a yard/storage for one of my 2 locomotives. I have a DC controller, single track loop, and a Cato passing siding kit, 2 number 6 turnouts left and right. The goal is to keep one of the trains at the yard while another is running, then be able to park the active train and bring it back to the loop, the passive one. Does that make sense, or will I need a V3 rail yard switching set?
Well, I mean, yeah, you could use fancy stuff. I mean, there's stuff available. You know, Atlas for probably 50 years made a little thing called a connector, which is just is it 3 or I think it's 3 or 4 just little on-off slide switches. I mean, you don't have to use anything fancy, and you only have to cut one rail. If you cut one rail, it'll kill it. So, you know, you could go to a place around here. We have electronic suppliers, you know, where you could buy little toggle switches and that type of thing.
Yeah.
You could make your own, just a regular on-off switch would be all you need.
We were talking about cement earlier, and we have Model Railroading for Dummies joining us from YouTube saying, tip, if you are making cement roads, use cement.
Yeah, well, sure. Hey, yeah. I've actually used the, what do they call it, the patching grade cement, not the stuff that you're going to make a sidewalk out of, but the real fine grit patching grade cement.
Try it out. Our next question is from David, who asks, to create my own adhesive for gluing down scenery, I've been told to purchase regular old white glue and add water, but what is the percentage of each? Like, what's the ratio?
Well, generally, it's about half and half.
Oh, half and half.
But I'll tell you what I would recommend, and actually, I mean, you can certainly use white glue, and people have used it for, 50, 60 years, but I like to use
matte medium or gloss medium?
Matte medium, because
been a while.
It works just like white glue, except that it dries flexible.
Yeah.
So if you try to glue scenery down with white glue or even ballast, if your layout moves around a little bit and the temperature changes or humidity changes, you could crack the glue loose.
Yeah.
Where matte medium actually is rubbery, so it'll give and take a little bit, and also acts as a sound deadener if you're using it for a ballast. So
it's forgiving.
You could certainly try white glue, but also matte medium is more expensive. But, give matte medium a try maybe, and let us know what you think.
All right. Our next question is from Sal, who asks, can FlexTrack be connected to Cato HO Unitrack? If so, which code, 83 or 100, and what brand? Atlas, Pico, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, pretty much anything. I mean, even different code sizes can be mated together. I've done that. I think the Cato track, this is HO, I think the Cato HO is maybe code 83, although I'm not positive about that. But you can butt just about anything together. It might take a little work to make it work, but basically you want the inside corner to line up. Yeah. And the rest of it doesn't really matter. If one rail's a little taller than another, a little wider than another, as long as the inside corner of that rail lines up, and you can just put them together, hold them together, and then solder them.
Good to go.
Or you can even epoxy them. Some people epoxy them. And then if there's a little tiny bump, you can always file it. But that would be pretty easy. So, yeah, for sure.
Our next question is from Sam from Pittsburgh, working in HO scale, who asks, what's the best way to calculate grades in my layout? Should I steer clear of very steep grades?
Well, yeah, I think we've talked about this before. A real railroad mainline railroad won't do generally more than about 2%, which is 2 feet in 100. And so for model railroading, they'll say, well, generally don't go more than 1 inch and 3 feet, which would be 3%. But of course, 3% will limit your train length. Yeah. And so in a real railroad, if they're going up a grade, what do you do? Add more horsepower, more horsepower, yeah. So in a model railroad, you do the same thing, more horsepower. the easy thing now, I mean, I used to do all this math in the old days. You know? But now you can buy a digital level.
Yeah.
Just go over to a home supply store and buy a digital level and lay it out on your grade, and you can just read it right out. You don't have to do any math at all.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd recommend. And but just, yeah, the rule of thumb is don't go more than about 2% on a main line, whether you're a real railroad or a model.
Yeah, there you go. Our next question is from Joseph in Las Vegas, working in N-scale, who asks, one of the first locomotives I bought for my layout seems to have developed some sort of issue. It's a minor one, but I worry it will get worse. When running it at intermediate speed, it slows down and speeds up at random. Not much, but noticeable. Adding some oil seemed to help, but only for one day. None of my other locomotives have this issue. It's DCC. I've heard people talk about resetting the locomotive to factory defaults, but I'm not sure if I can do that with my current DCC system. Any ideas?
Well, no, he didn't say what brand DCC is using, but you could try that. I mean, you could certainly just wipe the decoder clean and reprogram the whole thing, start over fresh, and then see what happens. But it sounds to me more like a mechanical issue. It could be something in the gears. It just kind of, you know, there could be a piece of junk even in the gears. It's just every once in a while it catches and binds it up. You know, that's possible. It could be the motor's going bad. Yeah. You know, sometimes the motor will work good if it's cold, and then if it heats up, it doesn't work so good. And so you have to go through kind of a process of elimination and just see. But definitely trying to reprogram would be the simplest thing to start with. And then, you know, if that's the only locomotive that's acting up, you know, it's not your layout or your test track. So, yeah, you just have to work your way through it and see if you can figure it out.
Okay. Our next question is from Dean in Omaha, working in HO scale, who asks, I'm starting to run my new layout, and the black stuff on the rails surprises me in its quantity. What is it? I'm using an Atlas Flex track. I painted the rail and ties, but polished the tops of the rail with Bright Boy. It can't be oil or grease, as I haven't oiled or greased anything. When the engine hits some that hasn't been recently cleaned, it slows down or loses power completely, sometimes only momentarily. I clean the track, and next time, though, it's fine, but it builds up again. Any ideas?
Well, I assume he's using nickel silver, so I doubt it's a corrosion problem unless there's some kind of weird something in the air. But it could be, it sounds to me more like it could be a locomotive that's leaking oil on the track that he isn't catching, and then by the time he runs it again, it might just be, you know, hardening up on the rail to the point where it's not making contact. So I'd just pay real close attention if you know, if opposite, you know, compared to the previous question, this sounds to me like it is a track issue. If all your locomotives are acting up, you know, it's probably the track, and there's some locomotive that's the culprit that's putting this stuff on the track. And as I mentioned, I use lacquer thinner, which is stinky. But it actually works real good to clean really bad, gunky stuff off the track. So maybe you could try, and the other thing, lacquer thinner doesn't leave an oil film. Yeah, there you go. So, you know, you could try lacquer thinnering the track and get it really good and clean and dry. And then just see what happens, and then see if there's a particular locomotive that's spraying oil on the track.
See if it's doing something.
Go from there. Let us know how it works out.
All right. Our next question is from Rico, who asks, how do I create realistic water around my track?
Well, there's multiple ways of realistic water. You can buy realistic water mix from Woodland Scenics. Woodland Scenics makes a lot of terrific senior products, but there again, you could use... You can use probably both. Well, yeah, gloss medium for... And I kind of like gloss medium in a way because with gloss medium, you build it up in layers. You don't try to do the whole thing, depending on how deep you want the water, of course. But you do it a little bit at a time to the point where, you know, you get it where you want it, and you can add color to it. And, I mean, that's kind of how I weather cars, too. I like to do it kind of slow, layer methodical, by layer, and look at it and see if I want to add more or not. And so you can certainly try the realistic water from Woodland Scenics. In the old days, people used ripple glass. Remember that stuff they used to put in like bathroom windows and stuff? And I think you can probably still buy ripple glass, just or maybe even ripple plex now. But you know, a sheet of plex that you can start with. That would be your base, and then you can work from there. But there again, I would, you know, you don't have to work right on your layout. Take a little sample or something on your workbench and try some different methods. See what works. And see what you think works, and try adding color. Of course, the gloss medium or even the Woodland Scenics realistic water will be clear. And you want a clear stream, or do you want it dirty, polluted, what, you know? So what do you want in it? People like put scenery in the water. You know, you can put an old tire in there, half buried in the water, that kind of thing. So yeah, I would experiment.
All right. Our next question, this is talking about matte medium, which we are right now. You were talking about matte medium instead of using white glue. Do you have to mix the matte medium with water like anything?
Oh, yes, glue? I'm sorry. I guess I didn't say that. Definitely would be about half and half, depending on how you're going to apply it. You can apply it with a spray bottle. You can apply it with an eyedropper. In a bigger area, you might want to use a spray bottle. But of course, matte medium has the tendency to dry up in your spray bottle. So if you're going to use it in a spray bottle, make sure and clean the nozzle, run some water through it, make sure the nozzle is clean when you're done. And then, I add just a drop or two of liquid soap to break down the surface tension when you put water in. Whether you're using white glue or matte medium, add just a
little bit of soap.
A drop or two of liquid soap.
Okie dokie. Our next question is from Craig, who asks, I'm currently using Bachmann Easy Command, 2 locomotives on a loop in an N scale about 5x4. Any ideas how to keep the locomotives apart? I'm the one who asked about the Roco, the earlier question.
Well, you mean they're running at the same time and one of them is going faster than the other and wants to catch up, maybe that kind of thing?
I'm not sure.
And is he using DCC?
It doesn't say.
Now, if you're using DCC, of course, you can adjust the speed.
For DCC, yep.
Okay, so if you're using DCC, you can adjust the speed of the locomotive, and that's what people do when they consist them. So you can adjust the speed of the locomotive, the top speed or medium speed or low speed. You can adjust the speed curve with DCC to get the locomotives to run identically. So maybe that would be the answer in that
Maybe
case.
that would help.
Yeah. Look at your manual, whatever brand you happen to have.
Our next question is from Frank in South Carolina, working in HO scale, who asks, can you give me the names of some good layout planning software?
You know, I'll tell you, I'm kind of old-fashioned.
Yeah?
And my layout planning software is a pencil and paper.
Yep, just draw it out.
And so, you know, I'm not really the one to ask, but there are people out there who love to do that. And I know people that do these magazine articles, for example, with the track diagrams, and they're really good. And I wish I could give you an answer on that one, but there's probably something online, or there again, talk to maybe somebody in your area that may know something about it.
All right, our next question is from Pete in South Dakota, working in S scale, who asked, I assembled my track, traced it out with pencil, glued down the cork, put the track on top of it, and it doesn't fit. I've started scraping it up and moving it, but it seems that no matter how much or how little I adjust it, it still isn't in the right place. Do you have any ideas, tips, or tricks?
Well, I assume he's using section track, maybe the tin plate section track. And offhand, I can't remember what the set radius of that track is, but there is a set fixed radius that the track is made to work for. And it seems to me all of those tin plates and early HOs were all made to fit on a 4x8 plywood. So it would be something a little bit under a little bit under 24, maybe about a 20 to 22 inch radius, I'm guessing, on that track. But I'm sure you could look it up online or talk to a template train collector and ask them what the set radius is.
Yeah.
And what I do whenever I'm using any kind of track is I draw a center line on my plywood or road bed with a trammel, and then follow that line with my road bed, so I know I have a true curve. You know, if you're going to any kind of radius, you want to make sure it's a true radius, not a kind of a weird thing. So I would try that. See if you can find out what the correct radius is supposed to be, and go from there.
Okie dokie. Our next question is from, let's see, Bradley from Atlanta, working in HO scale, who asked, I purchased Medusa cement by Walthers. We got another cement question. And seeking advice about what brands and colors to use. Any help would be appreciated. I want to use one spray can for the cement color and one spray can for the metal color. Then afterwards apply washes and or dry brush effect on it. Well,
you know, that's another thing. Cement can be just about any
shade,
any color you want. You look at real cement. You know, I had my sidewalk replaced, my city replaced the sidewalk in front of my house a few years back, and they actually painted it afterwards. You know, it looked like real nice cement. But I would go out and look at prototype, real cement abutments in your area and see what they look like. And anything you do with scenery or weathering, always start with the lighter color first, because it's a lot easier to cover up a light color than it is with a dark color. So start out with a light color, and also, whenever you do anything like that, I actually do it, I like to do it under the lighting that I'm going to use for my layout, because if you do it on your workbench under a light and then you have it under a different light on your layout, it might look different.
Yeah.
So start out with a light color and then add colors as you go, looking at examples of real cement colors and weathered cement.
We have a few responses to some questions we've been asking throughout this in the chat here.
Good.
Richard says, this is in regards to the person running the locomotives at different speeds. Could it be the cruise control settings that are at fault there?
Well, not knowing what brand of DCC he has, I don't think it's actually a cruise control so much, but there's actually a speed curve that you can set. The locomotive, and people who get real fancy about it, have a lot of locomotives use this JMRI software where you can actually program the locomotive speed curve right on the computer, and you can actually see the graph of the speed curve right on the computer, and that's so cool, because then you can set the graph the way you want it and bango, load it into your locomotive.
Yeah.
So if you're real serious and you have a lot of locomotives, that's the wonderful way to do it. But generally speaking, I mean, it's fairly easy with just with CVs, if you don't have a computer, to set the low speed, the mid speed, and the top speed for any DCC locomotive.
All right. And then also in reference to the software planning for your track or your layout, Model Railroading for Dummies says that they use AnyRail for track planning.
Oh, good. Well, I'm not even familiar with that, but that's good to know, and I should be familiar with that.
So there's a software to try out. AnyRail.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, our next question is from David in New Mexico, working in HO scale, who asks, I have a carnival scene on my layout that features faller merry-go-round, chair-o-plane, and Ferris wheels. I'd like to add any carnival sounds when the rides are in motion. Is there a system that I can purchase or create to place a speaker near the scene that plays the sounds?
Well, I use circuit boards from ITT Sound out in California for my commercial work, and I haven't used circuit sounds, but you can certainly ask them about circuit sounds. They can put anything you want onto a chip. You know, if you call them up and tell them I want any, blah, 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 anything, he'll put it on a chip. There's another one, there's there's another one anyway. There's a second one out there that does custom chips as well. So yeah, there's a couple of people out there that will do that, and you can actually get them so they'll run continuous, or so you can trip it. If you just want to have it run once, you can either trip it yourself with a button or have something on your layout trip it and have it run for a given amount of time. So, yep.
Give them a call. Our next question is from Roland in Louisiana, working in F-scale, who asks, what are the main reasons for derailment and how do you prevent them?
Well, actually there's two factors. There's the wheels and the track.
How do you prevent them?
Well, first of all, I've noticed on this, I've been taking my cars apart when I spray them. I take the trucks off when I spray them on the underside. But first of all, on the cars, first of all, you want to make sure that the wheels are engaged. And generally they are if they're factory made. But you know, there is you can buy a template that'll check the gauge of the wheels. But also you want to make sure that the trucks swivel freely on the underside of the car. And I've seen people who tighten the screws so tight that there's a resistance to the truck. The truck should be able to swivel freely, not have any resistance. So I generally run it in kind of finger tight and then back it off maybe, say, a quarter of a turn, just so they're free to turn. And so I guess then the next thing would be make sure that you're trying not to force a car around a curve that's, say, too tight for it. I mean, a lot of modern equipment needs big radius curves, and so you know, they just won't take the tighter radius curves. And then the track, there again, your track has to be true. It has to be true in the gauge, and it also has to be true from crosswise, has to be level crosswise, unless you're doing a super elevated curve. But crosswise on the track, I can show it like this, you know, crosswise this way, make sure that track is level crosswise. If there's a dip on one rail and not on the other, it's going to cause a problem. So even if you're on a grade, you know, the track crosswise should be level unless you're super elevated. And so both the wheels in the trucks and the track, all of those have to be good. And I'm using Proto 64 wheels, which are a more scale size wheel, and so being is how they're smaller. The tread is smaller, and everything is more fussy. And the smaller your rail is, the more fussy it is too. So that's why people use bigger rail when they get started, because it's more forgiving.
A little easier, yeah.
You just want to make sure you do a quality job on all of that, your equipment and the track.
All right. Our next question is, I have up to 6 locomotives going at the same time in N scale, 8x8. Is it okay in DCC?
Oh, by all means. Yeah, I mean, most DCC systems, now I don't know what particular system that may be running, but like a standard, full bore system is like 5 amps.
Wow.
And you could run a ton of N-scale locomotives off of 5 amps.
Yeah.
The one thing at a bigger layout, it's good to block your layout up into segments with individual circuit breakers. So if one thing derails and causes a short, it doesn't short your entire layout down. So if you have a big layout, you might want to, who knows, half a dozen circuit breakers for each segment so that it doesn't shut the entire layout down. And then, of course, you use bus wires and plenty of feeders. But yeah, if you have 5 amps, you've got plenty of power.
Plenty of power. Our next question is from Steven in Chicago, working in N-scale, who asks, I'm ordering some LEDs for my control panel. I want them to show red and green depending on which route the turnout is thrown. What is the difference between a bicolor LED and a bipolar LED, or is there one? And which one should I be ordering?
Well, it depends on how you want to hook them up and how you're going to operate them. A bicolor LED has 3 leads.
Okay.
So there's actually, it's like 2 LEDs in one case. It's kind of like, say, a red and a green or whatever colors you're using in one case. And so with the 3 leads, 1 lead is common, and then there's basically a red lead and a green lead.
Yeah.
Where the bipolar LED is like 2 LEDs put back to back. So that if the polarity goes one way, one color is on. If the polarity goes the other way, the other color is on. So depending on your circuitry and your wiring, that you have to pick the appropriate LED.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are all the questions and all the time that we have today. I just want to give you a few housekeeping reminders. Follow us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, use our hashtag #ShareMRA, and we may feature your model railroad layout or scenery on our Instagram account, so be sure to do that. And as we talked about earlier, Doug's into all the, hold on, I still have some more things.
Sorry.
We're into sharing all the fun tools here and all the household tools that Doug has been using. So if you want to download 10 household items perfect for scenery, below the chat, click on that banner and you can download it. And lastly, sign up for the Model Railroad Academy newsletter to be let known when we're doing our next Track Talk Live. So I'm Miss Choo Choo.
And I'm Mr. Clickety. And
run trains. We'll see you next time.